This moment right here, it's not random. It's personal. You didn't just happen to find this message. You were drawn to it because something in your spirit knows it's time. You've been feeling the pressure, the weight, the spiritual resistance. You've questioned why it feels like everything and everyone has been against you lately. But let's be clear, that pressure is proof, not proof of weakness, proof of power, proof that you are carrying something sacred. You've been hit hard, not because you're lost, but because you're dangerous to darkness, and no matter what's come against you, you're still standing. That's not luck. That's divine evidence that heaven has its hand on you. So before we go any further, take a breath and recognize this. You're not crazy. You're called. You're not broken. You're being built. And what's ahead of you is greater than anything that tried to stop you. This is your moment. Your comeback starts here. Let's go. Still standing. Still moving forward. That alone is the proof that something extraordinary lives inside you. What tried to shake you only made you see more clearly. What tried to break you only pushed you into deeper alignment. They didn't realize the pressure would awaken power. They didn't expect your silence to hold strategy. What looked like setbacks were actually sacred shifts, redirections into destiny. And now, no force has the reach to undo what's already been written over your life. Let's unpack this in 7 layers so you can understand the unseen mechanics of your rise. This is not just another voice in the void. This is a direct signal to those who have walked through shadows and kept their light, to those who've faced confusion, envy, spiritual attacks, and still stood tall. Before we go further, share this message because someone else needs this confirmation too. If your spirit resonates, drop a 55 in the comments. That's not just a number, it's a frequency. It tells the unseen world, I'm ready. Everyone won't make it to the last chapter. This path isn't about popularity, it's about purpose. It's for the ones who survived fires that should have left ashes and came out with gold. As you keep listening, you'll feel it, the deeper clarity, the divine strategies, and you'll understand why they couldn't stop you, even when they tried everything. This message isn't just to be heard once. It's a blueprint. Press play again when the road gets heavy, because every time you return, a new key reveals itself. Let's begin with the truth behind why the heat turned up on your life. Ever found yourself asking, why did they fall back without warning? Why did I feel under attack with no explanation? Why was I treated like a problem when I was just trying to grow? The answer? It was never about what you did. It was about who you are. Now is the moment to share God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube. With a donation of $100 or more, you can actively participate in His divine mission and contribute to His greater plan. Every offering you make reflects the boundless generosity of God, and I trust it will return to you abundantly, far exceeding your hopes. Always remember, His protection and blessing accompany your every step and every act of giving. You are a vital part of His sacred design. You are strong and radiant, steadfast like His mighty rock. Experience God's miracles. Feel the rewards of your generosity deep within your soul, and shine your light with boldness and faith. May you be richly blessed, and may the light of the Lord continually guide your journey. You weren't crafted for the crowd. You were coded for change. Your presence is disruptive because it carries clarity. You never had to announce your mission. Your energy made the room shift. You were set apart from the start. Even when you tried to shrink, your spirit still stretched. You noticed things others missed, felt things deeper, and even without a map, you moved like you knew the way. You don't walk this earth like everyone else because you weren't built like everyone else. You were designed to recalibrate systems, to challenge inherited pain, to plant truth where deception grew roots. That kind of light doesn't go unnoticed. And that's why the resistance was so loud even before you fully stepped into your strength. You've been targeted in rooms you've never entered, misunderstood by people who never really saw you. But it was never personal. It was spiritual. Some people weren't reacting to you. They were reacting to the transformation your presence activated in them. The shift you're in now isn't just about elevation, it's about realization. They left, not because you changed, but because your growth made their comfort too loud to ignore. Your authenticity reminded them of their avoidance. And that's why your light felt heavy to people still hiding in the dark. And here's the thing most never realize: the withdrawal, the whispers, the warfare. That was the sign you were waking up to your power. When a soul is marked for impact, the resistance often comes before the awareness. Long before you understood your mission, the opposition had already begun. That's not coincidence, it's recognition. Greatness gets challenged in its earliest stages because those who fear your potential try to silence it before it matures. The pressure, the chaos, the betrayals, it all sharpened your vision. What was designed to bury you only deepened your roots. Each time loyalty turned into a lesson, your spirit grew wiser. You learned to read energy, not just words. You stopped relying on masks and started trusting the pull of your intuition. The opposition wasn't accidental. It was aligned with your purpose. The pain had a pattern, and that pattern revealed power. Now you rise, not with pride, but with proof of lessons endured and a purpose refined by fire. You've always been a disruption to systems built on illusion. Your presence exposed what others worked hard to hide. That's why the resistance came, not because you were weak, but because you were waking up. And now that you're aware of your light, there's no returning to smallness. Some didn't stop at envy. They moved into intention. They didn't just disagree with your light. They attempted to extinguish it. Through subtle manipulations, whispered curses, and unseen rituals, they tried to limit what they couldn't control. But what they failed to understand is that you were covered before they ever formed a plan. You disrupted their control without speaking. Your peace made them panic. Your clarity made their confusion louder. What they did in shadows was born from fear of what your truth would reveal. They counted on your collapse. They hoped you would vanish under the pressure. But you didn't fade, you transformed. Every time they thought you were finished, you recalibrated. The very weight they threw at you became your resistance training. And what they sent to destroy you became the very thing that refined your resilience. They couldn't confront you directly, so they chose distortion. False stories masked as concern. Fake smiles paired with hidden motives. They tried to isolate you, thinking disconnection would weaken your core. But solitude only brought you clarity. Their absence became your alignment. The shifts in energy, the unexplainable heaviness, the nights of confusion. Those weren't imagined. That was real warfare, launched in silence by people too afraid to speak, but bold enough to act in shadow. But every attempt countered, every projection dissolved. The protection around you wasn't built by man. It was forged in the unseen by divine decree. You were never alone. You were never unguarded. From the beginning, you've been covered, assigned guardians, protected space, sealed intention. Every plan against you has already unraveled. What they hoped would silence you has only amplified your voice, and now you walk with undeniable power, not just surviving, but transcending. Their efforts didn't delay your path, they accelerated your rise. What they set in motion has only awakened the sleeping force within you. Your fire burns hotter, your insight is clearer, your steps are backed by the unseen, and everything they sent to block you, it has become the wind beneath your next elevation. What they meant for harm, the higher order has already turned into momentum. And this is just the beginning. Some people can't handle your presence, not because of what you've done, but because of who you are becoming. When they couldn't weaken your spirit, they changed their approach. When your energy couldn't be bent, they tried to rewrite your reflection. Not with truth, but with distortion. Words became weapons, not to wound your body, but to fracture your image. They couldn't find fault in your actions, so they fabricated stories. Moments were plucked from context, silence was turned into suspicion, and confusion was carefully planted in the minds of others. They shaped a version of you that never existed, hoping people would believe the lie before they ever met your truth. Some of those closest to you wore trust like a disguise. They clapped while quietly crafting narratives. Smiles became smokescreens for sabotage. But falsehoods, no matter how clever, collapse under the weight of time. Because truth doesn't rush, it reveals. And when it doesn't whisper. Now is the moment to share God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube. With a donation of $100 or more, you can actively participate in His divine mission and contribute to His greater plan. Every offering you make reflects the boundless generosity of God, and I trust it will return to you abundantly, far exceeding your hopes. Always remember, His protection and blessing accompany your every step and every act of giving. You are a vital part of His sacred design. You are strong and radiant, steadfast, like His mighty rock. Experience God's miracles, feel the rewards of your generosity deep within your soul, and shine your light with boldness and faith. May you be richly blessed, and may the light of the Lord continually guide your journey. Yes, the betrayal hit hard. Yes, it stung to see hands you once held twist the knife. You wanted to fight back. You wanted to explain, to prove your heart, to scream the facts. But instead, you chose silence. You chose your peace. You chose growth over noise. And that choice, that restraint, was your breakthrough. They were counting on your reaction. They wanted chaos. They wanted your breakdown to validate their fiction. But instead, you stayed steady. You healed. You elevated. And each time they repeated the story, life handed you another door, another opportunity, another level. Because divine law always works in silence, not spectacle. They thought they were smearing your name, but they were actually clearing your path. The exits of the unaligned? That wasn't loss. That was liberation. Closed doors were never rejections. They were redirections disguised as endings. What looked like sabotage was the start of your separation from what couldn't go with you. What felt like the sharpest betrayal became the brightest revelation. Your character stood when the storm tried to collapse it. And now, your presence speaks louder than their gossip ever could. You didn't need to clap back. Your life answered for you, and it keeps answering. The tide is shifting. People are beginning to see through the fog. The illusion is lifting. And what they once believed is unraveling in the light of your consistency. Because the truth doesn't hide forever. It may sleep, but it always wakes. And when it rises, it vindicates. Let them whisper. Let them distort. Let them project. You keep building. Keep shining. Keep walking with the knowledge that falsehoods will always crumble where purpose stands, because no distortion can block destiny, and no lie can unwrite what's been divinely assigned. They weren't threatened by your mistakes. They were rattled by your grace. And that grace? It's still unfolding. Let them watch. Envy rarely looks like hate. Sometimes it walks beside you, pretending to care. Sometimes it wears concern like camouflage. But deep down, it's not anger. They just couldn't understand how you kept shining when you were supposed to dim. Your calm shook their chaos. Your growth felt like judgment. Not because you shamed them, but because your healing highlighted their avoidance. You didn't come to compete. You came to survive. You came to rise. And even that was too much. They weren't bothered by what you did wrong. They were undone by what you did right. Your progress made them confront their stagnation. And instead of asking how, they started asking why you. They didn't want to understand. They wanted to measure. But you weren't built to be compared. You were born to transform. Some people didn't want to support you. They wanted to surpass you. But not through growth, through your fall. They withheld connection, not because you lacked value, but because your light disrupted their self-image. They waited for you to stumble, and when you didn't, that hidden envy turned bitter. They watched you, not to learn, but to find something to mimic or to minimize. Your very existence confused them. They couldn't understand how someone with your wounds, your battles, your background could still radiate that kind of strength. So rather than asking how you made it, they rooted for you to stop. And when you didn't, they tried to dismantle your spirit, tried to chip away at your essence. But you remained. What they'll never grasp is that what you carry wasn't gifted without cost. Every ounce of strength was built from experiences that nearly broke you. You didn't inherit your wisdom. You earned it in the furnace of real life. The calm on your face was carved by years of internal storms, and the clarity in your voice paid for in silence and solitude. They craved the shine, but never asked about the shadows. They praised outcomes, but dismissed the process. They were drawn to your energy, but unwilling to respect the endurance it came from. What they didn't see were the nights you wanted to quit, the moments you lost yourself before you ever found your purpose. Their resentment didn't come from something you did wrong. It came from everything you did right, in the face of what should have broken you. They weren't ready to celebrate you because your rise reminded them they weren't moving. And so, instead of reflection, they chose resentment. But know this, genuine love doesn't compete. It uplifts, it encourages, it claps, even when the spotlight isn't on them. Anything else is just insecurity dressed up as loyalty. And their discomfort? That's not your responsibility. You don't have to apologize for expanding. You don't have to explain why you've outgrown certain dynamics. Your light isn't the problem. It's just inconvenient for those committed to staying dim. You didn't make it through everything just to shrink into silence for the comfort of others. Let them feel whatever they need to feel. Their reactions are not your assignment. You weren't chosen to blend in. You were forged to lead, and every glare soaked in envy. It's just more confirmation. You are aligned. You are rising. And no false perception can reverse your purpose. You never needed their permission. You needed your power. There comes a point when solitude becomes the sanctuary, not the sentence. When everything familiar starts falling away, it doesn't mean something's wrong. It often means something higher is calling. The silence wasn't abandonment. It was preservation. People faded. Connections dissolved. Invitations stopped. It looked like rejection. It felt like a stripping, but behind the scenes, something sacred was happening. You weren't being erased, you were being refined. You were removed from environments that no longer matched your vibration. You were pulled out of rooms where your spirit no longer had space to breathe. The shift wasn't to punish you, it was to prepare you. Elevation never comes without separation. And where you're going, not everyone can follow. The season of stillness was never meant to make you doubt yourself. It was meant to remove the noise so you could hear the deeper call. You weren't being punished, you were being prioritized. The people who walked away didn't exit your life. They were released from it. And the silence, that was clarity arriving in disguise. You needed distance to see who was draining your energy and blurring your vision. You were never meant to carry everyone. You were meant to carry purpose. And purpose requires precision. So if it felt like everything around you was falling apart, it's because something inside you was being built up. And now, that isolation is becoming revelation. There's a reason your voice had to be refined in stillness, because what's ahead couldn't afford distortion. You were separated not for silence, but for clarity. You weren't meant to be surrounded by noise while your destiny was unfolding. So the distractions fell away, the false connections dissolved, and suddenly, the only voice left was the one calling you deeper. In that quiet space, vision sharpened. What once looked like loyalty revealed itself as attachment. What once felt like love showed its dependence. You were given sight beyond the surface, wisdom born from stillness, not chaos. That season of solitude wasn't punishment, it was development. You were being shaped without an audience, so that your arrival would need no introduction. Behind closed doors, you were being stripped of roles you were never meant to carry. People-pleasing, gone, doubt, challenged, false identity, shattered. Every layer removed revealed a version of you closer to the truth. The deeper you went into silence, the clearer you became, and in that stillness, you didn't just remember who you are, you remembered who holds you. It wasn't rejection, it was refinement. It wasn't abandonment, it was sacred protection. The world didn't forget you. Heaven was preparing you. You were being preserved, cut off, so you could rise above the level where noise and confusion live. Because what you're stepping into now requires a kind of discernment that only isolation could birth. They expected you to unravel when no one clapped. They thought the quiet would smother your fire. But something deeper happened. You became anchored, grounded in truth, awake to purpose, and unshakable in spirit. You no longer need validation to move. You no longer shrink to make others comfortable. You stopped watering down your power. And now you walk with intention, unapologetically aligned with who you were born to be. Don't rush this process. If you're still in that quiet place, embrace it. What's coming next will require everything you built in private. You're being elevated not because you shouted back, but because you stayed centered. When others threw shade, you didn't mirror it. When the attacks came, you didn't trade love for bitterness. You chose the path of integrity, not because it was easy, but because your spirit refused to be stained by spite. You could have dragged them. You could have exposed the truth behind closed doors. But you chose grace. You chose wisdom. You chose not to match low vibrations. And that choice, that's why you're being lifted. Not because you never felt the anger, but because you never let it own you. The nights you stayed quiet, the moments you walked away, the times you forgave without an apology, that wasn't weakness. That was strength, wrapped in restraint. While others reacted, you reflected. While they scattered noise, you protected your peace. And every time you took the higher route, you chose growth over ego. Let's be honest, it cost you. There were moments you questioned everything. Moments when silence felt like defeat. When doing the right thing felt like the wrong result. But you knew, lowering yourself would only delay your elevation. You didn't choose revenge, you chose renewal. You didn't sacrifice your values just to feel victorious for a moment. And because of that, what's coming is not just recognition, it's restoration. Heaven saw what happened behind your back, and now your reward is coming straight to your front door. You weren't trying to win popularity. You were protecting your peace. You weren't building enemies. You were building altars. And now, all of that private faithfulness is about to be honored publicly. You didn't just survive the fire. You kept your heart from becoming one. And that's the kind of soul heaven trusts with greater. That's why your name is being whispered in rooms your pain tried to keep you out of. Because your spirit remained unshaken. And that is rare. You didn't match energy. You held your frequency. And now the atmosphere around you is shifting in your favor. Now is the moment to share God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube. With a donation of $100 or more, you can actively participate in His divine mission and contribute to His greater plan. Every offering you make reflects the boundless generosity of God, and I trust it will return to you abundantly, far exceeding your hopes. Always remember, His protection and blessing accompany your every step and every act of giving. You are a vital part of His sacred design. You are strong and radiant, steadfast like His mighty rock. Experience God's miracles. Feel the rewards of your generosity deep within your soul, and shine your light with boldness and faith. May you be richly blessed, and may the light of the Lord continually guide your journey. They tried to change you, but your core never cracked. You protected your essence when it would have been easier to harden. You stayed aligned, even when everything tried to pull you off course. That's not fragility, that's sacred strength. That's the mark of someone who's been refined, not defined by their trials. Every moment you chose peace over performance, integrity over ego, you built something heaven will always honor. The myth that says the kind get left behind was never meant for you. You're not behind, you're becoming, and right on time. What's elevating you now isn't image, it's essence. You didn't climb through shortcuts, you rose through fire. And that's why no one can comprehend how you're still rising. Because what's lifting you isn't luck, it's legacy. This chapter is only the first page. Look again. The ones who spoke low when your name came up. They're watching now, not out of admiration, but out of confusion. They counted you out. They swore you'd stay broken. But your presence now speaks louder than their assumptions ever did. Some are watching in silence, some in regret, and some with a spark of conviction, because they now realize the truth was always in you. But don't pause here. This isn't the mountaintop. This is only the gateway. What's unfolding hasn't even touched its full potential. You've barely scratched the surface of the calling stitched into your soul. What's coming hasn't been orchestrated by connections or credentials, it's been woven by divine intention. Access is being granted not because of your network, but because of your name, your real name, the one spoken in sacred spaces, the one echoed in unseen realms. What was once shut tight is opening, and not one hand can close it. You weren't buried, you were embedded. What looked like a delay was development. What they thought was your finish was just the start. And now, you're rising in places they never even imagined you'd walk. Not because you sought status, but because you carried substance. Not because you wanted a stage, but because your spirit became the message. This isn't about accolades. It's about impact. You didn't just survive pain, you became purpose. Every silent battle you fought, every private tear, every long night where you almost let go, it was shaping the strength you walk in now. This glow isn't for show, it's evidence that you've been touched by something greater, that you were built through process, not popularity. The wounds you carry, they don't weaken your message, they certify it. Every scar tells the story of endurance. Every scar is an opening for light to get through. And now that you're stepping forward, you're not just doing it for you. You're doing it for the ones still wrestling in the dark, waiting to see what victory looks like. Your breakthrough doesn't just bless you. It clears paths, it shatters cycles, it resets lineage.